Where do you see this consciousness raising going in the next few years? As trying as everything is now, as much people may be reaching out for answers.
I think that Christianity is widespread in America, and certainly more so than Europe. However, it is for a long time its presence was taken for granted. And so a Christian would never have to ask, why do I believe this? Because everybody else believed it too. So when something is a shared assumption, it never is called into question. I think what's happened is we've seen the secularization of our culture in the last few decades. And I think what the new atheism has done is it has, in a sense, made explicit a lot of questions that were already there in the culture, but were not being asked boldly. Like, on what basis do you believe there's a God? What makes you think the universe had a beginning? Why do you think there is some kind of divine purpose in human life? So suddenly these questions, which were sort of in the air, but sort of underground, have blown out into mass culture. And so I think that what's needed is, in a way, they're not questions that a pastor can respond to, because a pastor is used to appealing to internal evidence. This is what the Bible says, and so on. So I think that's why apologetics, which is a sort of attempt to make a rational case for Christianity, there's a real need for it, and so I want to be part of that.
Where do you see that going in the next few years? If this is a successful consciousness raising, what is the next, I suppose, iteration of it?
Well, there are two interlinked, interwoven objectives to this. One is, I don't really mind which order I come up with them in, which order in which I come. First is the defense of secular America, the wall of separation, for which I think the evidence is we have a lot more volunteers than we thought. A lot more people are annoyed and upset and enraged and offended when that is challenged and willing to say so. And are increasingly reporting in to people who study opinion as unbelievers of one kind, or those who don't check any religious box. This is beginning to attract comment. And I think we may have helped, we the atheist movement, to manure the ground for that. Though, of course, to defend secular America, you don't have to be an atheist, at least. You just have to respect the wall. And then, on an even broader canvas, there's the necessity of resisting theocratic bullying in the rest of the world. Principally, I think, from Islamic fundamentalist sources. The Iranian bomb, the Saudi financing of madrasas, and so forth, the things everybody knows, but also the creeping Islamization in Europe, attempts at the United Nations to criminalize criticism of religion and so forth by the Islamic Conference countries. This is a full-time job. And I would add to it Messianic Jewish settlements in the West Bank with the same essential attempt to bring on the Messiah, bring on the apocalypse, Armageddon, often with the help of extreme Christian circles in the United States. So, if you see what I mean, it is all of a piece.
Right.
So we're not doing this just as a metaphysical argument, funnily enough. And though that's a great argument all by itself, of course.
Okay. Is there a relationship between a growing secularism and a more erratic real world, or more erratic political world that we're in right now? Is there a relationship, or is this circumstantial?
I think that there is I don't know if there's certainly no rise in secularism worldwide. There might be a rise of secularism in America, but I think it's less that there's more secularism, and I think it's more that secular people are more emboldened. A desire to sort of identify with secularism, to speak out, in fact, even with atheism. 20 years ago it would be uncommon to go to a cocktail party and have some guy say, I'm an atheist. But today that's not unusual. And so you have a more assertive secularism. That's one factor. I don't think it's driven by materialism. I do think it's driven, there are two factors driving it. One is I think it's a post-9/11 phenomenon. The fact that the radical Muslims were doing bad stuff in the name of God has created an opening for atheists like Hitchens to argue, look, that just shows you what crazy people will do in the name of religion. In fact, all religion is equally crazy, and so on. So there's an effort to sort of tar all of religion, and specifically Christianity, with the brush of radical Islam. I think that's had some effect. I think also we're living in a scientific era. We're in the anniversary of Darwin, a technological era, an information revolution. All of this has given unusual prestige to science in our society. And I think what the new atheists have done is very cleverly embrace the banner of science. They said that is our religion, in effect. That's our outlook. And so, since science has a lot of prestige in our society, I mean, we trust our lives to science every time we step on an airplane. That helps to see why this new atheism can claim to be, I think wrongly, but claim to be the party of reason. It's essentially saying that science is our way of knowing, and it's better than the religious way.
If we had a true separation,
Yes.
I would say maybe not even the elimination of religion, but the marginalization of it. What does that society look like for America? How is it much different than what we're doing now with it?
The way I'd have to answer that question would be this. People often say that a completely atheist or materialist society would be either very ugly or very bleak, or rather arid. And I dare say it's easy to see why people think that that's true. But what hasn't yet been tried, and what would be the level playing field test, would be this. A society that taught its children to respect and learn from Lucretius, Democritus, Galileo, Spinoza, Voltaire, Bertrand Russell, Albert Einstein, Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine. Well, we don't have a society that quite does that, which would be the fair test. But the nearest approximation to it we do have is the United States of Virginia Statute on Religious Freedom and the First Amendment, where any religion can be practiced, but no religion can be enforced or can be privileged by the state, or can feed off the taxpayers' money.
Groovy.
And that is worth fighting for, it seems to me. Was worth fighting for and is worth defending.
Well, thanks, sir.
Voilà.